Thanks for coming today to What's in Store show. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I love your trajectory. I think you're pretty nervous, I think, or at least that you've done so many things that I think we could take a whole hour just to talk about the trajectory, or even actually several hours. There are two experiences that I want to talk about specifically from your CV. But before that, I would like you to give kind of a pitch of your trajectory so people understand where you come from and where you are now. And then we will dive into some of the experiences. Does it make sense?
All right. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so I have a technical background, right? So I originally came from a Master of Science in Computer Science and Electrical Engineering background. I did engineering work. So I was one of the first professional services consultants of Netscape back in the days when people remember here in Europe. That was 96, so a long time ago, yes. So, and I did more technical work after that. So as a CTO, as an engineer, as a developer, all of that. And at one time I figured out, man, there's great technology there, and I even helped building that great technology, but other people are actually gaining the benefits from it. So at that time, I decided, okay, I want to be focused much more on the go-to-market side of technology as well, right? So I was always interested in that kind of work as well. So I financed my university studies by running two tiny little companies in the telecommunication space, right? So and. Yeah, it was a company called Total Recall. Yes, I didn't have the brand name rights at the time, but okay, nobody cared. So yeah, it was in the area of actually ISDN technology, so first digital networks here in Germany, in Europe, right? And also I did some least cost routing at the time. So it was an interesting time. So it was good while at university running these little companies, earning some money and financing my leisure stuff aside of studying computer science. Yeah. So that's how I actually got more on the go-to-market side later on. I worked for some companies I worked most of the time. I worked for companies out of the US. So right after Netscape, actually, I co-founded a company called WebCentric. We renamed it later on to Meteor. That company was actually in the nowadays you would call it web conferencing space, right? So it was kind of what Zoom, Teams, WebEx is today, right? So that was 98, super early. The browser technology, the networks, they were not really ready for that, right? So at the time, we did not focus so much on video. It was more on audio. It was more on sharing content, sharing presentations. So it was super early for that, but it was an interesting time. So we founded that company here in Germany. So with some other folks from Netscape and a few other people. So we got our first funding in within 2 weeks. It was unheard of at the time. So we went out, pitched it. Within 2 weeks, we had 3 million Deutsche Marks in the bank account. That was 98. It was 96. 98. Yes, so that's right.
Still the frenzy of internet going up, so I guess.
Totally. Yes. That was the time when there was the Neue Markt and later on the bubble that exploded in 2000. When was that? 2001-ish, right? Yeah. So at that company, we moved it to the US. The headquarters was moved to the US. We got American funding venture funding in. So, but eventually, when the market collapsed and funding was not available easily, I mean, we had great customers at the time, like Swisscom, like Microsoft. So we had good customers at the time, but still we couldn't get the company funded. So we had to close it down. So it was a failure in the end. But still, we learned a lot, right? I mean, building a company from nothing, sitting on a card box on day one, and then actually getting it to a company with more than 100 employees, with multiple offices. There was not so much remote work at the time, right? And having a headquarter in the US and having it funded over there, building like large infrastructure. We built our own, put our own Sun servers at the time into data centers. So We learned a lot.
Too much venture capital back then, no? I guess there would be how many?
I think what did we got in the end? I think we had about like 27 million or something like that. Dollars, I think. Yeah, I think so. I can't remember exactly. So it was, for German standards, it was very well funded at the time, for sure.
Just side note, is it very different, the landscape then? Obviously it is, but it's fundamentally changed. Is it something different from raising some capital back then and now 25 years later, or is it similar?
I think it's very different. So I think back then, especially in Europe, it was much harder to raise funding. So I think it became easier. It might still not be as easy as it is in the US, right? But I think it became much easier. There is much more venture funding available in Europe, right? From European funds, but obviously also US funds are investing more in Europe as well by now, right? So I think it's easier. It's more available at least. Yes.
Got it. And this is 2001, so what then to close?
Closed, yes. So, and then I decided, okay, I want to keep going with American companies. So I worked with a bunch of startups there, all in the, you would probably say, wireless communication, wireless messaging space. So bringing mobile, email to mobile, right? That was the time of like Windows Mobile and Palm Pilots and so on, right? So that was the time when BlackBerry actually became like a thing, right? And a big company. So I was always on the competing side with BlackBerry, so I was never with them. But I was with a company that actually eventually got acquired by BlackBerry, but that was after I left. So, and one of the companies, it was called IntelliSync at the time, got acquired by Nokia at the time. So, and we were supposed to become kind of the software roots of Nokia, so the management there wanted to turn Nokia into more of a software company at the time, right? And we were kind of a little piece of that. So it was hard. So as a company that was very much into hardware, phones, right, which had a software component, obviously, but there was still a lot of muscle memory, and the DNA of the company was very different. So with that little company that we brought in, actually, it was very hard for us to actually make a momentum there. So, but with that background, I joined the German company after that. Were in the same space, and from there I moved on to another American company in that space. Actually, that space actually turned more from mobile messaging, mobile communications into mobile device management, right? So you wanted to manage mobile devices like iPhones, like Android phones in an enterprise in order to make sure that you can actually bring email securely to a mobile phone, right? But also it evolved into like bringing applications and data and to the mobile phone, make sure that everything is encrypted and secured and compliance and all of that, right? That was kind of what's called MDM, mobile device management. That company called MobileIron, was the first employee here in the DACH region.
Excuse me, you avoid the part of, you were also head of sales engineer at Nokia, right? Or is this
when
Nokia acquired?
That was after the acquisition. Yeah. So
you stayed a little bit longer.
I stayed a bit longer there, not very long, but 2 years maybe.
2
years.
Yeah, 2 years.
Maybe. Yeah. Okay, so yeah. So I did sales engineering here in EMEA, across EMEA.
Okay, yeah.
So worked a lot with mobile network operators. So I was mainly partnering and selling into mobile network operators, not so much into the enterprise directly, right? So partnering, right? So that's what I have been doing a lot of my time, partnering with different types of partners, and that was exactly it. Yeah.
And now we go to MobileIron, that then
MobileIron, yes.
MobileIron. This is the one that I wanted to talk about more in detail.
Okay, all right.
This is one of the two that I wanted to talk about more in detail.
All right.
So in this one, I want you to take the time, because this is a company that you scaled from 0 to 100 million.
That's exactly right. In EMEA, yes. In EMEA, yes.
So there are a lot of people who's listening now that probably could take a lot of benefit from those learnings that you got there. So please take the time to explain how was that journey.
Yeah, so I mean that was actually also a longer part in my journey, right? So I spent there about 10 years, right? So I came in, was responsible for the DACH region, which um, I'm very familiar with because I'm based in Munich. I lived in Munich for a long time of my life, so I know the DACH region kind of pretty well. So what I noticed at the time, we were in a luxury position, right? So that was the time when MDM was a hot topic in enterprises, right? That was the time when everybody wanted to bring an iPhone into the enterprise, right? So the leadership in the enterprise, they typically had their Blackberries. They were fine with them. Then they got the fancy iPhone in their personal life. They used it for their photos, their music, their whatever. And they're like, wait a second, I want to have this fancy phone in my business life as well, right?
This is 2010, by the way, to frame it, 2010 to 2021,
Yeah.
you stayed there.
Yeah, that was, yeah, exactly. So then the iPhone was launched in like, what was it, 2007, I think, right? So 2009-ish, so the phone became ready to become like a communication device for the enterprise, right, with email and other things. So pretty much every single CEO of every DAX listed company here, they went to their IT organization and told them, I have this fancy iPhone, get my email onto that phone, right? Yeah. Then obviously the IT organizations and maybe even the CISO, they can be like, oh my god, now I need to support that consumer device. At the time, it was considered as consumer device, right? Now I need to get that into my IT infrastructure. I need to make sure that it's compliant. I need to make sure that I protect the data on the device, that I secure the device, all of that, right? So there are many things that an IT organization or a security organization had to consider to bring a device like that into the organization. And so that is when MDM was born. So mobile device management, that was all about making sure that an IT organization could manage and control a device in a way that can be used in an enterprise in a secure, in an efficient way with all the data, applications, email, and whatever you want, whatever they needed, right? So that was something, it was a hot topic at the time, right? So clearly we had a lot of demand. So we got a lot of like incoming leads there. So there were days when I came to the office and overnight I saw leads like of 3 DAX companies. I was like, I only have time for 2. What do I do? Who do I pick, right? Do I pick the largest bank in Germany, the largest automotive manufacturer, or the largest an insurance company or whatever, right? So it was a great time. At that time, I mean, that was like for half a year, right? So it did not continue like that forever, but it was like a good time to get started at least. So out of that necessity that I could not manage the demand at the time, right? I had to find a way to not leave business on the table. So the most obvious way to do it is like work with partners. So I invested a lot of time to work with partners that actually could get me benefits quickly in supporting that demand, right? So, and I will come to that later, how to pick partners, right? What type of partners. But what I had to do is, what I did is I was selecting very carefully who I worked with directly. I was a one-man show at that time, right? So in the region. So I had my like supporting functions like technical resources or other resources that I could get from the US, right? In the end, I was a one-man show at the time.
You're the chief revenue officer back then in DACH.
In that time I was the country manager or the regional director or VP, can't remember, for the DACH region. Yes, right. And your team was you alone. That was I talk about 20. What is it? 10. Right. So when I get started, I was there. I was a one-man show, and then obviously I had to build my team. Right. But I talk about really the first, 6 months or so. Right. So at that time, so I had to figure out how do I not leave business on the table and how do I make sure that the business I can take myself, right, in a 24-hour day, how do I do that in an efficient way? So what I had to do is I said, okay, I selected carefully, okay, these 3 leads that I get, I take myself, the rest, I give them to a trusted partner. I know that potentially they are not perfect. They might not be perfectly educated by me. I had to do the partner education about our solutions, all that stuff, right? But I mean, it was a calculated risk, right? So I trained the partners in a way that I felt comfortable to let them run a part of our business. So I handed them some of the leads and then, okay, run with it. If you need support, you know, you have my number, right? Call me, I will come in and will help, but I cannot run the whole deal myself. And then there were other deals where it was like, okay, these are the deals that I will take myself, right? I will work with that customer directly in a very close fashion, and I will bring partners in at the time when it's more an administrative task to close the deal, right? So at the time when I developed the deal into a stage where the customer was committed to buy, right? But then I had to deal with paperwork, contracts, other stuff. Then I brought in partners because that was a waste of my time, right? So that's actually a good point. So, I mean, in the beginning, there were two partners that were already working with MobileIron, with the company through the US organization, right? There were two that I could actually start with. So they were a little bit educated on our solutions. They could run. They had some experience from working with other solutions in a similar space, right? So they were not coming in from scratch. So that was good. So they had some, and I worked with them just because they were there. And then I carefully selected what other partners do actually sign up. And that is actually, I believe, a very important piece when you consider working with partners in your go-to-market, right? It's not about just going out there, look at the great brand name and say, okay, I want to work with X because I know they are a great IT partner in the German region. But what is way more important is to actually figure out why a partner might be motivated to work with you as a vendor, right? I'll give you an example. So if you have a solution that is an easy upsell to something else that they have sold already into a customer, that's the right partner. I'll give you an example. Back in the days, email was mostly on premises, right? Microsoft Exchange, Lotus Notes, whatever, right? So there were partners that have actually sold and implemented Microsoft Exchange servers to the enterprise customer, right? So guess what? These people were asked about, hey, we have this email thing from you, make it mobile. Wonderful. So these are people that actually can bring that to us. They also were very relevant to me because I know they had the expertise. They knew what an email server is and how to implement it and how it is implemented and how we can actually interface with that infrastructure, right? No, it was iPhone, Android. So it was actually at that time it was even Windows Mobile and other things. But yeah, that was mobile, right? And so that was. It's a wonderful partner if you have a solution that is an easy upsell to something else that they have already sold. Or another good partner is a partner where you are actually, with your solution, you are actually a facilitator for a much larger and much more strategic business of theirs. I'll give you an example, mobile network operators. At that time, it was super important for them to sell, I believe it still is, so to sell more iPhones and Android smartphones into the enterprise, right? High value data plans. I mean, the enterprises at the time, they had no high value data plans, right? There was either voice only or maybe some BlackBerry related data plans, right? But they were only for like a subset of the employees. So now it was all about like getting everybody in the organization an iPhone or an Android or whatever, give them a data plan. So it was a huge business for them. That was a multi-billion-dollar business for mobile network operators and still is, right? So, but in order to facilitate that, they needed an MDM, right? Nobody would buy 200,000 iPhones into a large organization without an MDM. You cannot manage 200,000 iPhones. You cannot secure 200,000 iPhones without a solution like that, right? So that means we actually, with our tiny little MDM solution, we went to all the mobile network operators in Europe, right? All the large ones, so the main ones, so Telefonica. They were in Germany, went with Deutsche Telekom, Vodafone, British Telecom, Orange, whoever, right? We went there and told them, you know what? You have that multi-billion-dollar business, but you can speed it up by actually bringing MDM with it, because that is the facilitator for that business that you are actually aiming for. So that is another very good motivator. So either you as a vendor, you want to be an easy upsell to another solution, or you as a vendor, you want to be a facilitator for a much larger business that a partner might have. Or there are other types of partners that fit very well. So for example, when so in our case, I mean, there were partners that had a wonderful business with BlackBerry devices, implementation services, servers, all that stuff at the time, right? But they saw what was on the horizon, right? They saw that the BlackBerries they were not never sold in these huge quantities like an iPhone, right? They saw that the sheer number of iPhones and other smartphones are much higher, but they also saw that this is the more attractive platform to the end customer, right? So they saw that their business is actually declining. So that's another good partner, a partner that has a declining business that you can actually substitute with your solution, right? So there's a super high motivation. And also they are well connected to their customers, right? So they were working with exactly these customers and also with exactly the buyer in the customer that we were targeting.
In this case, the problem is that maybe the business who are declining, they would have a cultural shock to change probably what they were doing to something new. That
some of them, they were just holding on. They were just holding on to that business, right, as long as they could. And there were others that they saw it earlier, and they were the more successful ones in that space as well, right? But yeah, I mean, obviously it's hard. You have a business and you see that it might not go that well, but you're still fighting, right? I still have a lot of respect for these companies that hold on to that business because they fight for it, right? Yeah. So, but in that case, the market momentum was just too strong, right? So there was no way that that Apple and Google and all the smartphone vendors that they will not gain the highest market share even in the enterprise, right? So that was clearly a wave that we were riding, that wave of getting smartphone adoption in the enterprise. And we were actually facilitating that, and we were helping partners or reselling partners, system integrator partners, to actually substitute that business that they had before.
And the reason why, because this is normally the question that if you would pitch that to me, or and to an investor, I guess in 2010, that they're not super into the business, they would say, oh, but Apple will do it, no? Because they're the manufacturers, or they will provide this extra side business to the companies because it's obvious that they need it. Why did Apple decided not to do this?
That's a very good question. So they provided the functionality. So they built functionality into their devices, into their operating systems that we as the software vendor could actually leverage, right? So at that time, I think Apple was simply not interested in selling a piece of enterprise software or or enterprise SaaS service, right? So I mean, they were focusing on the endpoint, on the iPhone, on the iPads. I mean, iPad, same thing, right? We were managing these iPads. So when you wanted to get an iPad, which was considered to be a laptop kind of, right? So into the enterprise, you needed us as well, right? So it was fantastic. We were riding that wave with them. But I think I think it was just the focus was just somewhere else. So, but they put the capabilities into the operating systems that we needed, so that we could actually build fantastic solutions. I mean, I think we have been the experts in the enterprise, right? I mean, you need that enterprise readiness in your product, right? When you want to sell, especially when you want to sell to large enterprise, right? It's not just about the functionality of getting email in a secure way to the iPhone, right? It's also about other enterprise capabilities that you typically need, which are related to like integrating into a typical enterprise infrastructure, right? So, I mean, for us at the time, we had to integrate with the corporate directory services, right? Where all the users are listed. We had to integrate with the corporate messaging services like the Exchange notes, whatever. We had to integrate with the corporate certificate services, right, for encryption and digital signatures. So that means there are many things that you have to do that are more like enterprise software, right? And I don't know, but I guess that is what Apple didn't see as their core competency, or they did not want to invest into, because they focus on the user experience on the device and all these great things. So I think that actually opened up that opportunity to vendors like us.
Yeah, the reason why I ask is also because you can extrapolate it to now, and you say you normally probably also using many pitches related to agentic AIs and things like that, and there's like, is OpenAI going to build this? But then there's always this meme that's like, yes, Google, Meta, Amazon, they have the cash enough to build whatever they want.
Exactly.
But will they? And then to be able to understand why they will or they won't is such an interesting topic that could make a company success or completely fail.
Exactly. I mean, sometimes it's really just a matter of focus, right? I mean, cash is available. That's not the issue, I guess. But it's also about what is the focus that you want to put in, and what are the key strengths. Because, I mean, let's face it, it's not just done with just building that technology. I mean, if Apple could have built an MDM, sure. Right, but then you also have to build everything around. You have to build a go-to-market organization around that. And if you have, I mean, I don't know if at the time there was an organization like that. Maybe they had, but to build an enterprise software sales organization is something very different from having an organization that sells MacBooks and iPhones.
Yeah, true. And then, in your view, are agentic AI and agents in general enterprise ready today?
So I think they're becoming enterprise ready, right? So maybe some are, I don't know, but I think that for sure they are and will become enterprise ready. I mean, there's so much development there, right? And there's so much also invested in that space, right? So there's absolutely no way that this will not happen, right? So, and I mean, I even see that in that old space. So to me, MDM, we were just talking about, right? It's a commodity technology by now, right? Nobody really cares about it anymore in the traditional way. But there are new companies actually coming up that actually are building new solutions in that space. They are not exactly the same like the old. They're not just managing an endpoint. They actually very much tied to be security agents on mobile devices, right? But actually, these solutions are built in a very, very different way. So they are not built like, okay, you have an enterprise admin with an admin user interface, and he can set policies and deploy applications and stuff. No, these tools are actually built for the AI age. So they are built in a way that an AI can actually do all the work, right? So they are completely managed through APIs. They have hooks into AI. They actually bring their own agents with them, right? So that you do that type of traditional MDM work in a much more efficient and much more clever way, right? So we had customers that were building huge sets of rules about which this user gets this at that time when he's traveling there and all that stuff, right? Crazy, a lot of work. You needed a gazillion administrators to actually manage the solution. With the new solutions that are out there, right? Actually, the AI is doing that for them, right? So even that space which is more like a commodity, a very low price point, it's bundled into other products, right? Even that space is actually evolving through AI, agentic AI.
That's it. Yeah. And we did a little detour because we were talking about MobileIron and the experience to be. You were this one-man show. We were in you were the one-man show in the DACH region, and we wanted to know more about this 0 to 100 million road. But the thing is, so far, what I got now is that the product timing was so good.
There was a fantastic product timing, right? So, and that product timing get us off the ground quickly. That was very, very clear. We were doing the right thing at the right time, right? But that only gets you to a certain point, right? And then obviously you also have competition, right? There was a huge competition. I think at one point we counted about 147 or so competitors, right? So at that time it was, I would say, not 50 million, not even 50 million, the whole market at the time when it all started. So it was a lot of competitors. So I think even in Germany we counted 8 or 9 or something like that. So I mean there were a lot of competitors, tiny little companies, sometimes self-funded, sometimes venture funded, whatever, sometimes just an add-on to something else. So there was a lot of competition, but that actually faded quickly away when some companies actually they managed to get ahead of everybody else by executing very well in the market, right? And I would assume that everybody had a similar demand coming into the organization, right? But then it's all about what do you make out of it, right? Yes, we had a great product. That always helps. Wonderful. But then also, I mean, you need to keep the momentum by actually getting it into the market as well and getting executed in the market. And that is where the partners helped us a lot, right? I mean, again, for the first, can't remember, 6 months, let's say, I was a one-man show. So, I mean, I can only be at so many places physically or mostly physically at the time as a one-man show. But with my partners, right? I mean, I had the very first partner, even if it was not the most perfect partner, maybe they had 20 salespeople, right? I trained 20 salespeople. I mean, I don't know, maybe 10 of them, they got it, 10 of them, they heard about it, right? But I had 20 people that went out in the market and at least they had eyes and ears and figured out where customers were talking about bringing an iPhone into the enterprise. And there were 10 of the 20, they actually were actively approaching their customers about bringing an iPhone into the enterprise, right? So I had about 20 people that did a part of my job. Maybe not all of them did it in a perfect way, right? But 20 with like, let's say, maybe I don't give them the right credits here, but let's say 20 with like 50% of what I was doing, right? That's way more than that one person sitting in an office in Munich on a card box.
You give away a part of your benefit, though.
I give yes, but again, then it's always about like, yes, you lose some control over your destiny, right? But you can also get a lot of control by actually staying very close with these partners, by making sure that these partners, especially in the beginning, the early days, right, that they understand there is someone they can trust. They can trust. They can ask. They can bring them to the customer, right? So I mean, they were pulling me to their customers, right? So later on, when it was not like 5 DAX leads coming per day, so they were actually pulling me to their customers because they know they could trust me, and later on they could trust my team, right? Because they knew they get a lot of benefits from us getting us involved into their deals. We always consider them to be their deals, not our deals. I always consider it we benefited from the partners' customer relationship and their deal. We sold our technology into their customer. It was, I mean, in the end, it was our customer. I get it, but if you look at it from a mindset of working with their customer, right, where they have a relationship with, I mean, for them, it's difficult to actually work with a vendor that they don't perfectly trust because they will not bring him into their accounts, right? Because there's a long-standing relationship. There's other existing business. So you need to build a lot of trust. And you build that trust by actually helping them, by being there with them when there's something going bad in a deal, that you jump in. One thing that is super, super important when you work with partners is, I mean, there will always be partner conflicts, right? One partner is working with a customer on a certain opportunity. Then you have another customer who also has a relationship, who comes in late in the deal and wants to reap the benefits, right? I mean, typically what you do as a vendor, you have a partner program. In the partner program, you have things like a deal registration, and a deal registration, whoever does a deal registration with a partner gets maybe an additional discount or whatever, right? But sometimes the second partner just comes in and wants to sell at cost, right? So that means for the first partner, super hard to get anything out of it. But then if you as a vendor kind of steer that between these two partners, right? So I had conversations where actually I had zero benefit for myself, right? But actually I supported that one partner that helped us in a deal, that was running a deal, against one of his competitors, one other partner, one of our partners, right? Another partner that I love to do business with. But still, in that particular situation, the other partner did the work, and we needed to make sure that this partner actually gets the benefit from that work and not the other partner who sneaks in at the last second, right? It's an investment. It's an investment that you, as a vendor, do with your time by creating a fair environment for your partners, right? So that the partners understand, okay, if I invest into that relationship, if I invest into building a customer base, if I invest into demand generation, I will get something out of it. And if that is an atmosphere, an environment that you create as a vendor, that is super helpful to actually get a motivated partner base, a committed partner base, because then they understand I fight for them, but then they will also fight for me when we are in competition with another vendor, right? So that it creates an environment where really everybody is willing to win together. And that actually helps me and to scale that business very well, right? So working with these partners, so having the right partners, giving them something especially in the beginning, giving them something that they can work on, giving them leads, hot leads, right? Fantastic leads. I mean, not every day, right? I mean, there were days there were no leads, there were days that there were just bad leads, or the 5-person hairdresser or whatever. That was not in our ICP at all, right? So, but still, the fact that you as a vendor have something to give them, you give them leads, you give them education, you give them a great solution, you give them the support they need in the pre-sales phase, you give them the support that they need in the post-sale, during the implementation, right? So that is something where they see, okay, that's a vendor that's worth putting my money and my resources in. Because, I mean, let's face it, partners, especially when you look at traditional reseller or system integrator partners, they can pick from thousands of vendors to work with, right? What is the right vendor to pick? So even if they just select, okay, I want to be active in that space. Let's use the example MDM again, right? They had 147 to work with. Who do I pick? Right? So it has to be the one that actually provides a lot of benefits to them, the ones that makes their life easier, that makes their life more successful, right? And sometimes it's a test, sometimes it is, sometimes it's just showing, just to show to them right from the beginning. I approach partners that I had no relationship with, right? Just again, we talked about picking the right partners, right? So, I mean, there were times where partners were coming to me, right? But then there are also times, or to us, I have to say, but then there are times where actually you reach out proactively to partners. Cold outreach. So, because, I mean, there were a partner that I knew had a specific profile that I needed. I give an example. Partners in the that were selling into the public sector, right? So the partners that I had, I mean, they theoretically they can sell into the public sector, but they had no relationship, they had no trajectory, no history, nothing, right? So it's much harder for them. It's much easier for a partner who's already active in that space, right? So we reached out to these partners like, hey, you are in that public sector. We are working on this and this and this opportunity. And then I had to pitch to them why they should work with me.
And this reach was you go to the office tray, you throw a DM on LinkedIn, you call them?
LinkedIn, call. At that time, actually, I did a lot on the phone. Okay. So typically I used 3 airport batteries per day. So airport charges per day. So, yeah, I had two of them that I was always charging. And no, there was not. No, actually, typically I got in the door by talking about some success that I had with their competitors.
Okay, yeah,
right? It's FOMO.
Of course.
It's FOMO. So I came in like, oh, by the way, you might have heard of our deal with XYZ that we did with your competitor ABC, right? Okay, I want to hear about it, right? That's a wonderful way to start the conversation, right? So Yeah, so I think that creating that atmosphere is super important. But then also, I mean, over time, I mean, we talked about me being a one-man show, but that was only for like half a year or so. But then actually, in hiring a team, right, it's also super important that you bring in the right people that actually understand that way of doing business.
Okay, I'm going to stop you here a minute
Mhm.
because this is a very, very interesting theme. But before this, then, I think something that is super useful for who's listening that has a startup and they are thinking, and normally I know many technological startups that they're in this position of deciding, should I go for my head of sales and building a sales team? Should I go for the partner? So when is it the moment where you click and you say, okay, I stop the partners, I build my team of sales, or my sales team. When do you need to choose? When is the right time to choose?
One critical thing is if you sense some repeatability, right? So you have an approach with a customer and you have tested it out, you have won a deal, you do that a second time and a third time, then you notice, okay, that seems to work, right? So your pitch and the way you run a deal, that seems to work. And that is the time when you get some repeatability because that is what you need because you cannot train. I mean, it's super hard to train your own team, but it's even harder to train a partner on something that is different every single time.
Of course.
Because then you need to have people that are more creative, that are more that can adapt to a situation every time, right? But if you have something that you know it works, right? In our case, it was, I mean, our solution was much more, even in the early days, was much more than just bringing email to an iPhone, right? But what worked was just going there with like the message of, we bring you email securely to the iPhone in a way that your IT and security people don't scream, right? That was it. That was something that you could teach a partner easily, right? I mean, yes, there were 200 other values that the solution would bring to the customer, but you focus on that one because that one is repeatable, and that is a case that was a use case that every single customer had, right? I mean, bringing application XYZ to an iPhone, I mean, at that time it was like maybe for 10% of your customers, right? But email, it was a use case that every single customer had. So you focused on that one that generated repeatability and that helped you to actually educate your partners in a way that they can easily rinse and repeat.
Okay. And when is it then this? So, okay, you can repeat and scale with a partner, but then anyway, you decide
Your team as well, right? You because when you hire, that's also something as a startup when you're small, you're maybe in the founder-led sales phase, right? And you want to hire like a sales organization, right? You should have some repeatability at that point as well, right? You should have defined your ICP, you should have your product ready, and then you should also be able to teach your new sales organization about repeatable use cases, repeatable sales, because you cannot expect from people that come into an organization brand new. The organization is not like perfectly ready with everything they do, right? So you cannot expect that people adjust every single deal in a way, right? So you need to find something that is repeatable, easily repeatable, and then people deviate from there, right? So I mean, I was teaching the people coming into the organization in the way that I did, that I learned how the business works, right? Which was very repeatable, as we mentioned, use the email use case, all of that stuff. But then people evolved from there, right? So people actually figured out, oh, wonderful, I can start pitching with that email use case, but actually the use case that helps me increase my win rate is for me XYZ, right? So they used XYZ. And other people used ABC to increase their win rate. So it deviates from there. But you have to have a good starting point. And that is key, I think, for hiring a sales team. It's also key for actually starting a partner-based business, right?
So then you have, until you don't have the ICP, the product repeatability and the sales repeatability, you don't start hiring your sales team.
I mean, you can experiment with a sales team, right? But you cannot hire a sales team at scale. So, I mean, as an investor, and we will talk about it later, I guess, right? So, I mean, when you want to pour money into go-to-market expansion, right? You don't want to pour it into something that is a try and error approach, right? You want to put it into something where you see that something is working and that by adding additional resources and money into that same system, that you can get the scale.
Okay,
That's what you want.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. But let me then ask you. So if you're doing this MDM, so that is super cross, right? So the pitch that you would do for a telco wouldn't be the same probably that you do for a pharma, and they probably won't need the same. So would you go sector by sector then?
So ideally, you start with exactly the same, right? So, but in our case, in that case, it was easy, right? Email is a use case that is relevant in all sectors, right? You need it in pharma, in automotive, in everywhere, right? So that was in that case, it was an easy one. But later on, you needed like a verticalized messaging, right? So when we are selling the solutions into financial services, for example, right? So, I mean, much later, it was much more of a platform, much more capabilities. I mean, absolutely, we focused on compliance and regulations in the financial services industry, right? So our solution supported these regulations, but then also our messaging, our sales approach, right, was focused around compliance and regulations in the financial services industries.
But you get there through trial and error because you don't know at the beginning that financial is going to track more than pharma.
That with again we were like more a horizontal solution in the early days, right? So we could go to every single vertical that we wanted to. So that's actually a funny story to that. In Germany, again, wind back a few months or years, it still was a one-man show. So much demand coming in, right? So I thought like, oh my God, what do I do? All these verticals. And I said, okay, what do Germans like? Cars and beer. So very basic. what I actually did, I put a lot of attention on automotive, not just the manufacturers, but also the suppliers, right? Because there was a lot of manufacturing and stuff, and there was also, I mean, obviously I knew there's also money in that in that vertical, right? And also beer just for fun, right? So, and actually, I won a few customers in that space, and it's fun if you use that in like when you talk to your next customers, to your partners, you tell them, oh, by the way, hey, cars and beer is our focus, and you always do that with a smile, right? So I mean, it's not your focus that you focus on beer, right? But I mean, if you do that with a smile and tell them, look, this is what we focus, and here are our first customers.
But it
it's
makes
a nice
total
story.
sense. Like, if you take the markets that are flourishing the most, and you say, I go here, and then because my solution is so broad that I could go anywhere, so I go here because by inertia they will have money, they will have budget, they will.
But it's also about the story, right? So I mean, beer is not. Beer was never a huge market for us, definitely not. But we had some early wins in that space, and it's just nice to tell people. Let's face it. I mean, that was 2010. Most IT buyers were male, right? So cars and beers resonated quite well. So
got it.
Yeah.
So, and now we're going back a little bit. So you find this ICP, obviously, product repeatability sales. By the way, did you find the company or did the company find you at the very beginning because you're the creator in the DACH region?
When they hired me,
Yeah.
They found me. So there was a guy in the US. There was a guy in the US who I worked with at Nokia. And so I think he recommended me to the guy who was hiring for Europe.
Because we haven't talked about your hire, but your hire is also key.
Oh, right. No. So
so then you're here, you found this ICP, product repeatability and sales, you're creating this FOMO with the partners, and now you have to scale the team because you have the speech clear. How do you do this split between how big is my sales team? How do I continue with the partners? How do you structure?
Yeah. So in the very beginning, the first people that are hired or in sales and sales engineers, right? But all with a background that they have worked with partners before, right? So I didn't need any like people that had no experience in that space because that's something that you can. It's hard to teach people how to work with partners if they haven't done it before. So that's clearly one of the criteria to hire the team. So every single salesperson, every single sales engineer had experience in working with different types of partners, right? So that gave me the benefits of some experience there. And then obviously the approach that I had as one-man show, I transferred that into the team, make sure that they follow the same approach that we were having, right? And at that time we had no partner managers or channel managers or whatever you wanted to call them at the time. So that means everybody had like a part of their role was actually to work with partners on education, enablement, on hiring, on recruiting partners, right? So everybody had that as part of their job description to actually enable partners to work with us. We then they did it. I mean, they did high touch sales, but never direct. Even in a deal where the customer, we ran the customer beginning to end, right? The whole sales approach. In the end, we transacted via a partner, right? So we went to the customer and told them, you know what? We are an indirect sales organization. Pick and choose your partner, right? And sometimes it was a partner that we did not work with. Obviously, we tried to work with a partner that was an existing partner of ours. But sometimes, I mean, it was just a partner that we have never heard about or we never worked with before. Yeah, that's fine. That is. I mean, obviously, if you just hand a deal to a partner just for the transaction, he will not get like a 30% or whatever you have in your partner program, right? He get like a 3-5 point margin or something, right? That's it, right? So, but
huge difference from a 3 or 5% to a 30%.
Yeah. So
with your partners. Okay.
Yeah. So typically, when you have like a partner program in place and it's a partner sourced opportunity, right? I mean, they get a higher share of the deal, right? So that can be 20, can be 30%, depending on how rich you want to make your partner program, right? So, but in the case where you just hand the deal off for a transaction, I mean, you negotiate with the partner in the end what you want to allow him to take in the deal.
Were the SLAs a problem? But the SLAs, just in case, is the service level agreement. So what happens in the first line of support?
For support,
second, third.
Yeah. So obviously, with our partners, so reseller, system integrator, operator partners. So we asked in our partner program, we asked them to run the first line of support, right? And we took the second and the third level. We also had a model for large enterprise customers that they could buy like a premium support where actually we take the whole support burden away from the partner, right? So we had different models there. But clearly, if it's just a transactional partner, so where you just hand the deal at the end of the deal and they are not educated, they don't know how to provide support, then in that case, typically you had like a direct support relationship with the end customer.
Got it. Then how big did you manage to have to grow the team back then?
So in the end, so that whole business, so I ran the DACH region, as I said, then I added Eastern Europe to my patch, then I added Central Europe, then I ran EMEA South, then I ran EMEA, and then I ran the whole of EMEA. So for most of my 10 years that I were at the company, I ran the EMEA business of MobileIron, and I grew that from 0 to 100 million in ARR. So we were originally a perpetual, we sold our software as an on-premise perpetual license model. We turned into subscription. So we went through all the hoops from one-time revenue-driven, booking-driven into like full ARR-driven organization, right? Through all that, we managed to get it to 100 million ARR. And then I eventually took over as the global CRO. That was the time, was right before COVID, I think. And so at the time, that business was about 100 million ARR that took the global. Actually, it was a bit unusual. So the EMEA business was stronger than our North American business, although we were an American company. So I was asked by the board a few times to run the global business, but I was so happy in my EMEA business that I didn't.
How big was your team in EMEA?
So the EMEA sales organization was about the people that were actively selling was about 60 something. The overall go-to-market organization was about 110, I think.
Okay. And the number of partners
Yeah.
with these 60 people in sales?
Oh my God. What was the
Roughly,
number
roughly.
of partners? I would say, I think I have 400 in my head. So it's a long time ago, right? We always talk about the old stuff here.
True. It's just because I think it makes so much sense to understand this part.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, this is something we're doing in other interviews. We just get the background of the person, and then the person can come back in this next season or even later in the season to go deeper in what they're doing now.
Okay.
But
all right.
because it's your first time here. So.
Yeah.
But got it. So
Right.
around 60 people in sales, specifically 400 partners more or less.
Yeah.
So the
I think
ratio.
in EMEA.
In EMEA.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
So
then you
globally, there was about, I would say, thousands maybe.
got it. And then you pass from being the chief revenue officer in EMEA to be the global chief revenue officer.
Yeah. So actually, my role in Europe was not called chief revenue officer in EMEA, but it was, I think we called it. What did we call it? SVP International Sales or something, or Sales EMEA. I can't remember. Anyway, so becoming like a C-suite member. So as the CRO, that was when I took over the global responsibility there. And to be honest, the only reason I did it was COVID. Everybody was locked in the room, so you couldn't travel. The only thing I had to do is I had to shift my work time more into the night, right? Working even more with the US. I mean, when you work with a US company, especially a Silicon Valley-based company, you work late hours anyway. At least if you want to be successful, right? So, but at that time, I completely shifted my work hours. So from like I started like at whatever noon or so. Did some emails in the morning, but noon, and then ran into like 3 a.m. in the morning. I was locked in so I was the only, so we closed our office. We had an office here in Munich. We closed the office, but I kept the key. I was the only one that's still going in the office. I was sitting alone in my, can't remember, 300 square meter office and did my night shift there.
And why not going to US? I know it was COVID, but if there was no COVID, would have you go live in US or no?
No. I think I probably would not have even taken the role. No. So I was asked a few times to take that role earlier, but I never wanted to do that. So I had 3 kids here in Munich. They were at the time they were small. I wanted to be with them. So I mean, I was traveling enough. You can imagine, right? So I mean, I was traveling to the US all the time, traveling within EMEA or APJ all the time. So. Once a month. So to the US, probably once a month. Yeah. Or one in 2 months, maybe. Yeah. So a lot. So, I mean, I've mostly worked for Silicon Valley-based companies. So I know San Francisco airport in and out. I can't see it anymore. So I'm happy with my current role that I don't have to fly to San Francisco airport all the time anymore, but actually go to other places.
Then I think for the sake of time, it's worth at least mention, and maybe you need to come back to go for this area. But jumping, you were also in Stone Ventures and some of the stuff, but now you are in Planven as an operating partner.
Yes, that's right.
Since 2021. So please explain a little bit what Planven is doing, what kind of fund it is, and what's your role there.
Yeah. Planven is a venture investor out of Switzerland and with offices in Zurich and in Israel, in Tel Aviv. So Planven invests in enterprise SaaS companies, in cybersecurity, in health technology, in AI, and in vertical SaaS. So Planven has about 300 million ARR under management. Not ARR, not ARR, 300 million assets under management. And so the team is very much focused in supporting the portfolio companies in go-to-market success, right? So there the company focuses a lot of like building and having a network of like enterprise partners that actually the fund can do introductions to. There are partners like me that support in go-to-market strategy, in hiring, but also in introductions, right? So that's something that is super valuable, obviously, to the portfolio companies that we bring a lot of like industry expertise, but also relationships and contacts to them in the process, early on in the process as well, right? And also help the organization, help the portfolio companies to make sure that they invest in the right things in their go-to-market at the right time. So very experienced team. So with like industry leaders, so via mobility is a great example of the portfolio company in the mobility space. Then companies like IBEX, medical analytics, so in the healthcare space. So companies in cybersecurity, like Seraphic Security in another hot space in the enterprise browser security space. So a very diverse portfolio. And the company invests typically about 10 million into a company. So as a lead or as a co-investor, and the focus is in actually supporting companies out of Europe or Israel to and support them to expand in the global market.
Can you explain a little bit what's the role of a venture of operating partner in a fund? Because people I think sometimes confuse. I have the partner, the general partner, the operating partner. Like, can you explain what actually you do for the fund and how do you work in terms of how much money do I need to have carry in this? Do I need to put my money? How is the role of the operating?
I mean, it's a role that is defined a bit vaguely. So there are some funds, they define it different than other funds. So, I mean, operating partner, can mean that you are actually like a temporary executive in a portfolio company, right? So the investor community, they put you into a portfolio company to support a strategic direction by being day-to-day, full-time involved in that organization, right? So that is not what we see as an operating partner. So operating partner at Planven is more like you are the coach, the advisor. You go in with like projects, with assignments, right? So it's not like this, like, oh, hey, let's have a chat. That's not what it is, right? This is a lot more value, which is typically like, for example, I advised companies like, is it the right time to actually start with a partner-led or partner-supported go-to-market model, right? And obviously that needs some analysis, but also it needs to understand their market, the situation, the timing, all of that. But it's also really working with the founders, working with the team, and maybe develop that model first, which might be very, very different from my model, right? Yeah. So, I mean, my model was my model that worked for me at that time in my business, in my market. Wonderful. But to develop that model together with a portfolio, with experience that you bring, right? Sometimes there's experience, good or bad, positive, negative experience that you bring in order to make better decisions, right? I think that is super helpful for organizations. Sometimes the result is just like, nope, we are not doing that, or at least not now, right? So it's not that we go in with like, we think we want to implement a specific model, and then the assignment is to absolutely make it happen. Sometimes the assignment is rather like evaluate if that is the best model, and then maybe stay away from it or not.
How many companies can you advise at this role, and how many hours do you put?
It's a small number. It's not like they work with all the portfolio companies. So typically, it's like one or two at a given time.
Okay, and that takes away your whole journey?
No. So in my case, in this case, so my day-to-day job is actually I'm working with another American software company, cybersecurity company, Armis, exactly. So the cyber exposure management company. I got there to actually reevaluate and rebuild the partner business there. So I was their SVP global partner sales at Armis for the first 1.5 years or so. And now I'm the chief of staff to the president of Armis. So also, it's kind of the same thing. It's working special projects in the go-to-market organization, right? For example, we have acquired, actually, the company has acquired 3 organizations over the last 12, 18 months. And right now, one of my assignments is to make sure that the one company that we acquired actually gets integrated into the company as quickly as possible, and that we as quickly as possible get their products into the sales organization and sell these products as upsells into our existing customer base, right? So again, it's a bit similar, right? It's also like, okay, very focused on success in a certain area in the go-to-market organization. Everything what I do is go-to-market. I mean, I have a very strong product and technical background. I still program.
Really?
But just for fun, right? It's just for fun. So I program microcontrollers. It's weird, but fun. Anyway, and I do that with my kids. So that's why I actually probably do it. And with that kind of background, so being more like a generalist with a bunch of experience, right? And having gone through a lot of transitions in my past as well. For example, we didn't talk about that in that MobileIron case, right? I mean, we moving from being a one product company to a multiple product and a platform company. That's a transition where you have to have the whole organization has to follow that journey. Turning from being a perpetual business into a subscription-based business, from a on-premise business to a cloud business, moving from being a private company to a public company. So MobileIron, we get public in 20-something, 14, 15 or so, right? So, I mean, this journey, these transitions, I mean, that is something that is a lot of experience that portfolio companies and can actually benefit quite well from, right? Because everybody is always in a journey, right? Yeah. So you can never be in the same place all the time. And sometimes it's a kind of a forced journey and forced transitions, and sometimes it's like a proactive transitions, right? And that is where I think the investors can add a lot of benefit, bring a lot of benefit with people like me, like with operating partners, right? So because, I mean, founders and leadership of portfolio companies, they do their thing. They do it very well or not. In most cases, they do it very well, right? But sometimes you are stuck in the way that you do business. Sometimes the view from the outside is super valuable, right? And sometimes just comes in, I've been exactly in the same situation, right? So it works very well. But if we do this and that, it works actually much better. So sometimes it's just important or interesting to bring in that outside perspective, and especially when you have seen these transitions in the past.
And for that, did Planven pay you on a number of hours devoted to companies?
I'm on a retainer with them.
You're on a retainer with them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So exactly. And then if there are like, if the portfolio organizations, portfolio companies, they want something very special, very different or so, maybe I get into an engagement with them directly. Yeah, exactly.
Got it.
Right.
Understood.
So I mean,
another partner model. You work with Planven. Planven brings you the deal.
That's right. Yeah. Actually, I could absolutely make that my main source of income. Absolutely. So yeah. But
you need to do 1,000 things at the same time, I see.
I do a few things at the same time. That's right. Yeah. I'm also an investor in renewable energies. So build. So it's fun.
But then, Christoph, let's do this. When this will be posted, we can allow the people also to do questions, because I feel now bad that I'm taking too much of your time. Not the things that you have to do. But then we can invite you to come over again and just talk a little bit more, because I think we touched it a little bit, especially the partner model, that I'm very happy that we went through it in detail. But I think you may have a lot of cases with success cases and failure cases with companies that you work with as operating partner as well, that I think is worth to share. So maybe it's nice to do a second round probably in the near future.
Absolutely. Happy to come over again.
It was a pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
That's all.